Okay, good morning, guys. Good morning, and welcome back to our class. So, without wasting much of our time, um, let me wait for someone to join. Then we start the class. Okay. Um. Sorry, guys. You will see my face today. Today, I'm not in a good environment right now. So, last week we discussed about UX deliverables and what else? We discussed about user interface. Yeah. So we talked about different UX deliverables, personas, customer journey map, um, what again? User scenarios, user stories, and the likes. So today we'll be discussing UI design principle. And yesterday we talked about, last week we talked about user interface, just like an introduction to what user interface is, and we discussed wireframing, and that is a very important concept in UI UX. So without wasting much of our time, I'm thinking maybe we should start with the practical first because we still have a lot to cover, especially in the UX part. And today we are in the fifth week of this program, and it's 8 week program. So we need to try to cover. We still have a lot to cover, so we need to fasten our belts. So let me check the Figma file and see. Is it okay? Okay, so okay, you have replicated that. Let me make you an admin, so that you'll be able to edit it. Yeah, now you can edit. So I said you should come up with the low and the low and mid fidelity. Okay, and what I can see here is great. Seriously, I need to recommend that because as a newbie or anybody that is just being brought to this design stuff, so you still have, like, you've done a lot, seriously, and I need to recommend that you've done a lot. Just keep up with the good work. You've done a lot, seriously. There's even nothing to look out for here because you can see everything is accurate and perfect. So, but later you'll be improving, but for now you are good to go. You are good to go. So that means we've been able to cover the wireframing, low, mid, and high fidelity. Okay, we've not discussed the high fidelity. We only talked about it. We've not practicalized it. But don't worry. After we've discussed about 2 to 3 more topics, we'll be able to go into it perfectly. But for the mid and the low fidelity, I can say that we are good to go. We are okay. Okay, so now what I want us to look into is the survey, the research we carried on, and let's see if we can get some information from it so that we'll be able to proceed with our projects. Coming. Okay, so we only have 10 responses, and this is very very small, but still we will progressing with it. So what I need to know now is that, do you have any, you haven't gotten back to me about the interview, so we can't actually decide yet, but we can still do something. So hopefully you should get back to me today or tomorrow, please, so that we can try to work on something. Okay, so based on responses here, let's start from this place. Let's start from this question. Where do you live? Urban. So we typically have more people in the what urban region. Okay, so that means uh we are going to be dealing with urban, like people with people that are very very much civilized, people that are living in the civilized area. Okay, so we are good to go for that. And how do you find yourself throwing away food that has gone bad or expired? We have uh the high probability here is the often. People find it more often that they throw away foods, despite that some are still hungry, some don't even have anything to eat, but people still throw away food. So we should try to work on that. A smart refrigerator, a smart app that can help reduce that can even eradicate that. Okay, so what are the primary reasons for food waste in your household? So many people choose the misjudging food freshness. They are not clear about uh, how fresh is their food. Okay, so, and also we have another percentage is 50% unclear expiration dates. Yeah, that's also part of it. They don't know when this will it will expire, or maybe they are carried away or something. And also forgetting about food items in the fridge. So that means we need to take note of something like a reminder, an active reminder, okay, that will notify them that you still have something in your fridge and it will expire so date. So you need to take note that you need to use this food before it expires. Okay, so that means we have that. And we also have overbuying groceries. Yeah, that means also it's also part of it, also part of the uh reminder. So we need to let them know that you still have this thing in your fridge, you still have this particular food in your fridge. So whenever they want to go to the market and get some food, they will know that they should not overbuy. Okay, so that's that. So that means we are taking notes, taking into action of that reminder kind of notification. It must be what? It must be very very active. Okay, we can see about two primary reasons why people waste food is because of negligence or that forgetfulness, something like that. Okay, so that reminder will help them overcome that kind of challenge. So do you currently use any? People say no, they don't have anyone. So this will be their first app. Okay, so we need to try as much as possible to make it simple and intuitive, to make it clear so that they're able to use it. They have not used any kind of app before, so bringing out your own app as the first one needs to be very simple and clear and solve the particular problem they want. Okay, so how would you be interested in a smart they all say yes, they are interested. Okay, and that is what a good response. So which of the following features would you find most useful in a smart refrigerator designed to reduce food waste? People choose automated expiration dates tracking. So that is very very important. So, and how can we achieve that? Back to the features, back to the reminding features. So that notification features, this is also clarifying that it needs to be what? Very active. sorry about that, guys. So as I was saying, we need to take note of that notification features, okay, so that it can help them track expiration dates, okay. And also people, another one is also mobile app notification, like what we've been saying, and also recipe suggestion based on inventory. So we need to have another section for that, like it could be in form of awareness or blogs or something like that. So blogs that are very very related to recipe suggestions, what they can use and how they can use it. So another section for that, okay. So we have about three key things. The first one that we had in mind was the barcode, the one that can scan the food, the item properties, okay. And another one is the automation expiration date tracking, so like a tracker, okay. But how can we achieve that? We need to have a very active mobile app notifications, okay, and recipe suggestion. That's making it about 4 key features, okay. Then we can add some other things, but these 4 key features need to be on the app. Then we have, are you willing to manually input information about food items without barcodes or RFID tags into a smart, okay. Are they willing to manually input it? Some people say yes. So that means on the section whereby people want to input the food information, the food item information on the platform, we need to have a room for them to input it manually aside from the barcode. So if you want to input it as a barcode, you can do that, or input it manually. So would you like the smart refrigerator to provide information on how to properly store different food items to maximize freshness? They all say what? Yes. So we can also have a section for information, okay. Maybe whenever a user has completed inputting food items information on the platform, then we can just have something under that telling them on how they can store this particular food, okay. So that's another thing. So okay, this is the last question. Do you have any additional comments or suggestions related to a what smart refrigerator designed to reduce food waste? They all say no, should be able to track process, okay. If it's not work perfectly, then it will be helpful to everyone. Okay, if it works perfectly, yeah, okay. Lifespan of cooked food stored. Let's accept this first. If you have anything to say on that, but let's just accept this first. A refrigerator shouldn't be defrost quickly. This will prevent spoiled food. Okay, now you can see that from what we've discussed so far, we've been able to denote, like we've been able to identify some features. That's just part of synthesizing, okay, and analyzing data. That's just part of it, okay. So what we need to do now is to go back to our document page. It could be that we are using Figma, you can use Notion and anything, but let's use Figma, okay. So let's go back to it. Okay, should we use this page? Let's use this page. So this is just a workshop, okay. Since we are creating our platform on this file, let's add another page on it, okay. Let's just name this research, part of our research, okay. So I want to write down some features, the features we got from that's the insights we got from the research. So let's just have something like, let me use 32. Okay, key features based on the words, based on the research, right? Okay, so let's now let's go back to the this thing. So the first thing is about the barcode, right? The barcode feature. Okay, the barcode feature, or inputting food item information, right? Items info. Okay, then the next thing is what? The tracking, right? We have a tracking, automated expiration date tracking. Okay, then we also have mobile app notifications. Then we have recipe suggestions based on inventory. Okay, so since we have these key features. Now here is the thing. Okay, so last week we discussed about what information architecture should be. We discussed about information architecture as an aspect where you can what's it called, organize your information, right? And how you can organize your information in a clear and understandable way. Okay, so starting with that. Okay, yeah, let's start with that. We still have a lot to cover, but let's start with that. Where is it? Okay, so now I want to show you how information architecture works and how we can get it done. Here is the thing. If you want to come up with information architecture, based on the research you made, okay, based on the research you made, now that you have key features, exactly, since you have this, you are good to go. Now, on any platform, we do have registering or sign up, and we also have sign in or login, right? We have the onboarding screens. We have onboarding screens where you showcase, where you tell the user what they will be expecting on the screen, right? That's an onboarding screen. Then we also have something like, okay, the verification. Maybe you are using email to verify them or any other kind of means of verification. Then we have the home screen. The home screen, sometimes for some app, is not always home, but it's just the first screen, right, after the login. That's also known as the home screen. Then we now have different screens based on different features. Okay, now this is the thing. Home, let's say home first. Let's say I have this too. Okay, so since you already know, you are aware of the verification and everything like that, let's leave that for now. Okay, it's not really needed here. We have the home screen already. Okay, so let's leave this thing for now. Then another one we have here is now it now depends on how we want to structure these features on the platform. Okay, so we can have a page for automated expiration date tracking. We can also have another page for the app notifications and another page for recipe suggestion. But the first one, which is the barcode inputting, the barcode feature, right? That's supposed to be on the home screen as a main feature. What users are going to be seeing first, okay, before they do anything. So when you are welcoming a user on the platform, what you want them to do is to make use of the main feature of that platform first, and that is the what, for them to input or use the barcode to input their food items. Okay, that's the first thing. So that will be on the home screen. Okay, so and then later you can now change the name of the home screen to something like scan or something like that. Yeah, that would have been better. Okay, scan food or something like that. But it's still the words, the home screen, what users are going to be seeing first after they log in. Then the next one is what, the automated tracking. Let's just use tracking. Okay, so then we have another one here, which is the app notifications, recipe suggestions. Okay, so let me duplicate this. Recipe suggestion, and then what, we have the notifications. So we have this. So it might just be that we are going to be having about 3 nav bars on the screen. Okay, just 3 or 4, since we don't have plenty features. Everything we are dealing with revolves on this, under these key features, under these 4 features. So we can change this to scan. Okay, can change that to scan. So now this is how information architecture works. You have key features at the top, then you now have all the other features under it. Okay, that's just it. It's as simple as that. Okay, so let's say on the scanning, you can scan or you can manually input. Okay, hope you can see my screen. Hope I'm still connected. Okay, so they can manually input I'm duplicating this. What else? Even after input and doing everything like that, they can submit it. They can. That's another screen, right? It will take them to another screen, hopefully. And also on this screen, they have opportunity for the tracking too. Okay, so like a nav bar, and also the recipe suggestion. And then they can see their notifications. Then after this, okay, let's leave all of this first. Then after they input the information on that stuff, what happens? So for everything kind of project like this, if they have input their notifications, they will obviously see a kind of button, a continue button or something like scan button. Then after that, they will see the information of that information of that item if they scan it, and also if they input it manually, they will still see that. Okay, so then after that, they'll be able to kind of save it or store. So by clicking on this save or store, that means they are saving that information on that platform, like they are saving it in the refrigerator, like a digital refrigerator, right? So then after that, they'll be able to now see any other feature on it. So we can name this our tracking. We can put our tracking here. Shouldn't worry about it, because there are still some hidden features, some hidden clicks, right, that we are not going to, that are not necessary on this information architecture. Maybe during the user flow we can have all of that. The stages might be more than this, right? So you don't need to worry. Let me just extend this. Then we have for the tracking. So now on that tracking, what can be there? Okay, let's go to recipe first. On the recipe, they have blogs about recipes, like information they can read about recipes, on how they can store, on how they can cook it, stuff like that. And what else? They should have something like a search. So maybe a user want to make any kind of meal, and she needs information on how she can get that done. So we can also have like a search button for that, and also something like something like what's it called, videos or content, yeah, anything like that. Okay, so they can have that, and under that they can do anything. Okay, so then these are just, like I said earlier, we might still have some things under this. Okay, it's not just limited to this. Okay, so how do we want the tracking to look like? The tracking should be in form of what's it called? They have the search buttons to search for any food also, and they will have lists of foods there. Okay, list of stored foods on that tracking, so that they can make any decision based on that. can check for they can also remove or delete foods from refrigerator. So what that means is that they can delete used foods. Okay, so maybe whenever they are done with that, they have taken that food from the refrigerator. You know, this is a digital refrigerator, right? So they can remove that and some other features too. So this is just how information architecture is. It depends on the kind of project you are working on. If it's a very big and complex project, you are having a very big information architecture chart. Okay, it's just as simple and understandable as this. It's just a way for you to section everything you want. Okay, every information on how you can make it organized, on how you can organize your words, your platform, your app, right? So now let's go and see what else you can do. Okay, so we cannot even proceed yet because I'm still waiting for the interview research report. Okay, so based on that one, we can still add more. Okay, and we can remove some. It depends on what we get. So if some are not necessary, but I think everything here is it will be nice. To have everything here on the screen. So let's just wait to get that. So before coming back to our practical, let's quickly talk about user interface design principles. Okay, so today we'll be talking about UI design principles. So principles, as the name implies, that means something like rules, right, that governs design. Rules that govern design. All the rules we need to take note of before we can call this thing a design, right? So everything here we'll be discussing are important principles. If they are not met, that means your design is is 50% off. So let's get started. The first thing here is the color. So we'll be talking about the color theory. So what's the color theory? You know, in every design, in every kind of design, even not only design, just our lifestyle, everything, it's color evokes feelings. Color determines some decision we make. Okay, so it is very, very potential in this UI UX design, in designing interface, right? So color is a key thing a user needs to understand, a designer needs to fully understand before going into your design. So without touching this, that's why we cannot proceed with the high fidelity yet, because it requires more understanding of UI design principles. So now let's talk about the color. So color is the practice of blending hues, using the color wheel as a guide, right? Trying to blend hues together. So it's a representation of primary, secondary, and tertiary color. So that's what color wheel is. So color wheel has different kind of colors inside it, but is a what representation of primary, secondary, and what tertiary color. And we know what primary, secondary, and tertiary colors are red, green, yellow. Yeah, so that's the tertiary primary color. And we also have secondary color, and secondary color are formed from the what primary color by mixing red and yellow together will give us something. Blue and red together will give us another thing. So, and that forms secondary color. And also combining secondary and primary color or secondary colors, that gives us what tertiary colors. So color is an important design basic as it indicates the overall mood of a design. So it determines your emotions, your feelings. Okay, so imagine having a kind of red color. You know what that means. You know that this thing could be something like danger or love in some other aspect, but mostly it's like danger, right? It's like danger, fire, or something like that. So you need to what understand the color theory before going into your design, as it indicates the overall mood of a user. Okay, so the color palette is now the actual colors a designer has chosen for a project. So usually based on what color scheme. So color palette contains your primary color, your secondary color, your accent colors, your neutral color, and everything like that. Okay, so it will tell you and also the developers that this is the color, and everybody involved, this is the color we are using for this project. So the color palette involves everything like that. Okay, or you call it is also known as your color styles. Okay, so the color palette can be used as a contrast or even to complement what the elements. Yeah, so using a color to what complement an element, right? Even without color they can't even see it. So now we are still on the color theory. We also have color codes. Color codes are means of representing the colors we see in a format that computer can understand and show. So color codes are like something like when you have ash FFFF, that's white. When you have ash FEF, something like that, that's another color. Okay, so we have the color codes to represent our color in a form that the computer will understand. So if you are saying something like ash BEC 309, something like that, don't be surprised or don't be shocked. That's a color code that the computer understand. Okay, so but here we can use if you input the color names like blue on the Figma color inputs, it will bring the color code. So you don't need to memorize the color codes, just know few. You can know white FFF 000 for black and some other color, but it's not necessary for you to memorize color codes. Then we have some terminologies under the color theory. We have the HSL. The HSL represent the hue, saturation, and lightness. Hue, saturation, and lightness. And we have HSB. HSB indicates hue, saturation, and brightness. So they all determines the colors. And we have RGB, which is the red, green, blue. So these are kind of color terminologies that we see to indicate our colors. Don't worry, I will show you on the Figma file now. And we also have the hexadecimal codes, like the one we said earlier. These are codes that the computer understands. So if you're a kind of person that knows how to memorize codes, that works on codes very well, you can memorize that and be using that for your projects. It depends. Okay, so now let's understand what hue is. Hue is the color position of the color wheel. It is measured in degree. In any point you have your cursor on the color wheel, that is hue. In any position, any point, that is color. That is hue. So it's the color position of the color wheel. That's just it. Then we have the tint. So tint is the lighter version of a hue. So if you are taking the hue to something like a lighter version, that is tint. That means if you are taking your position on that color wheel to a lighter position, that is tint. Then we have shade. The shade is now the opposite, the darker version of a hue. So if you are taking it to the other side, that's the darker side, that is a shade, right? Then we have saturation. Saturation is how colorful or vivid a color looks. So if you have a saturated color, that means that color is very, very colorful, right? So it's very vivid. And we have lightness. Lightness is how close a color is to what? Black or white, like the degree of the blackness and whiteness, right? So if you have 0% lightness, that means pure black. And if you have 100%, that means what? Pure white. So if you have 100% lightness, that's pure white. If you have 0% lightness, that's what? Black. That's just it. Now, before we go into typography, let's quickly talk about color once and for all on our Figma file. So let me bring a rectangle on the screen so that we can use it to indicate the color. No, let's not work here. Let's go back to our workshop page. So now let's have a rectangle on the screen. Now this is where you can find the color. Okay, so just click on this. Now this is what we've been talking about. This is the color wheel. Okay, so this cursor here is the hue. That's the position you have your color, right? The position you have your color. So if you move it around, you are moving around. So that's hue, right? So now we now talked about tint, and I said tint is the what? The lighter version. So if you take this color to this side, that's a tint, right? You are taking it to a what? A lighter version. And if you take it to this side or this side, anywhere here, you are taking it to what? To the darker version. And that is what? That is a shade, right? You are taking it to a what? Darker version. Then we have what's it called? Saturation. We say saturation is how colorful or vivid the color looks. So me looking at this hue, this colorway, that is what we are talking about, a red. So if you want a red, a colorful red, you take it to this side, right? So that's a very colorful red. You can see how vivid it is. Then we have the opposite, which is what? This lightness. It's not the opposite. So you can say how colorful something is. So if you are taking it to this side or this side, that means is what? It has a low saturation. It's not saturated at all. It's not colorful. Now we have the lightness, right? So what lightness means here, how we can indicate that is that I said 0% lightness means black. So if you take your hue to this side, that is black. There is no lightness in this color, right? So if you take it to this upper side, that's 100%, right? 100% lightness. That is what? White. Okay. So in design, we don't call white or black a color. They are not color. They are just hue. That's what we call it. So they are not called color. So black and white, they are not called. But on a layman, we indicate them as what? Colors. Okay. So now let's talk about the color codes and the HSL, HSB and RGB and the likes. So now this is a color code because this is white, this is black. That's why we have 0000. Okay, so this is black. That's 0000. And there is another thing we have here, which is known as the opacity. So opacity indicates kind of how opaque a color is, right? So if you reduce this thing, that means the color is kind of less, it has about 39% opacity. So if you increase it to be back to normal, so 100%, so you can reduce it. And if you are in design, if you need something like a glass screen, you can use this opacity to get that. So just have to reduce it. So if you put anything under this rectangle, that thing will probably show because it has a what, a low opacity. Now we have HSL. This is where we now have our codes. Okay, so this X is the code, hexadecimal code. So it's a kind of is a way you can represent your code on the screen. And we also have the RGB. So RGB indicates red, green and blue. So it starts from the point of is 0 to 255. So if I come here and I increase this to something like 20, you can see there's a change on that stuff. That means my green has a what, a 20. Then if I increase the blue too, if I increase the blue to something like 50, what happens? The color change. Okay, so like that. Or let me increase this to 100. So you can see, so it starts from 0 to 255. Okay, so you can use that also. Or you want to use this CSS is for programmers, so we are not going to be talking about that. Is their work. So HSL, like I said, that H means the hue, S indicates the what, the saturation, and L indicates the lightness. So if you increase this lightness to something like 100, it will be very, very light. That means it will be what, 100% lightness. That means it is white. There's nothing to say, irrespective of the hue, irrespective of the saturation. So it is white. So let's reduce this. So if you increase this one too to something like 90, let's not make it 100, it will be what, highly saturated. That is saturation. You can see on the screen that it is what, highly saturated. That's saturation. And the hue, this talks about the position. Okay, don't be disturbed about that. Is the position. So if you have something like 80, the color will definitely change because you are taking the hue from the position to another. You are taking the cursor around the color wheel. So if you change the hue, it will definitely, if you change the number, it will change, definitely change the color. That means it will definitely change the position of that stuff. So that's how HSL works. And we also have HSB. I said HSB indicates hue, saturation and brightness. So hue, that's the color position, and we've talked about saturation too, how saturated the color is, how colorful it is. And we have brightness. Now this is brightness. It is very, very similar to HSL, that L, which indicates the lightness. So brightness, lightness, they are very, very related. So if you increase this to something like 100, you can see it's very, very light, but not as lightness as what's it called, 100%, as 0. Okay, so as white, sorry, so it's different. So that's how color works. And here we have, if you are working on a project and you have used any kind of color, this is where you have them documented. Okay, you can see documented colors. We have used black, we have used this kind of gray color and some other colors. So if you are working on what's it called, a style guide. Okay, we have style guides here. We have style guides. So style guides are kind of stored or saved styles that you want to use for that project. Okay, so that means if you are using a particular color at the start for the same project, you need to stick to that color, and that is the essence of our style guide, so that we won't be disturbing ourselves going back and forth to get the same color. Okay, so we will just store everything in one place. So if you come here, you can see your saved styles, color styles here. Let me check, do you have any questions? Please, if you have any question, you can ask me on the group. I think the chat box there is not it's not accessible. So, like I was saying, if you save that style guide, if you have a style guide, you see it here. So you can see different style guides there. You can see the documented colors. Okay, and also if you come here, let's say you click on this and you now come here, you can see before I click on it, you can see when I was over on it, you can see styles. Okay, while hovering on it, you can see style. So on this, you can now choose any color based on how you documented it. Okay, so don't worry about that. We'll be talking about style guides maybe next week. Okay, so on how we can save our colors, style, and some other style guides. We can also save our typography. So that's just how color is. Okay, you can now move around, choose any color you want. And also we should take note that, like I said, that color evoke feelings. Every color has their own meaning. Okay, if you use red, that indicates danger. If you use blue, it indicates trust or peace, stuff like that. You can see. So the assignment I'll be giving now is for you to go and make research on those colors and their meanings. So it will depend on how you are going to be using it. So if you are working on a project like agricultural related projects, that means you should use green. Okay, if you are working on a banking project or something like fintech, you can use blue. Okay, so if you are working on something like cryptocurrency, you can use purple. Can see. If you are working on something like a dating app or a dating app, you can use red or something like that. Okay, or pink. Those colors that are related. So that's just it. Now let's talk about the next concept in the principle, design principle, which is the typography. So typography too is very important because you are not going to be explaining your design every time. It is what you have on your design, how readable it is, okay, that will make user use it. Okay, so if you have a typography that is not readable, that people can't see, definitely they won't interact with it. Okay, so typography is the art of arranging a message in a readable and aesthetically pleasing composition. How you can organize your message, how you can organize your text in a readable. You can see I make a priority on this readable. You can see, so that word is a key word. It must be readable. That's it. So, and you can have aesthetically pleasing composition. Definitely it must be what? It must be beautiful. So that's what a typography is. It's the what? Art of arranging message in a readable and aesthetically pleasing composition. Now we have typeface, we have fonts. So there is a misconception about typeface and fonts. People don't really know the difference. So typeface is a collection of related fonts of the same design. So if you have something like Roboto, Area, and Inter, that is the same typeface. They are within the same typeface. And we have, if you have something like Roboto medium, Roboto semi bold, that is now fonts. Okay, so but Roboto itself and Area and Inter, Roboto itself is a what? Is a typeface. It's a kind of typeface. So types of typefaces we have the serif typeface, we have the sans serif, we have the monospace, we have handwritten or script, and we have display. Okay, now let me take you to Google Fonts, because if you want to work on any font and you can't see it on your Figma, you can go to Google Fonts, or you haven't made your decision yet on which font you should use. Just explore the Google Fonts here and you'll be able to see them. Okay, So just a minute. Now, so you can see different fonts here. We have different fonts. Okay, now what I want to show you here is that when I was talking about typeface, I said we have the serif typeface, we have sans serif, we have monospace, handwritten or script, and we have display. So if you come here now, if you are looking for a serif typeface, because serif typeface usually have stroke at the end, at the edge. Okay, so that's how serif looks like. So I'm going to be showing you now. So if you are only looking for serif typeface, so you just have to unclick all of this and have only serif. So these are serif. You can see they have something like stroke at the edge. You can see stroke. You can see something like stroke. If you look at this very well, you can see stroke. So you can explore as much as possible. Okay, this is for serif. So if you are looking for sans serif, you just have to unclick everything and work on what sans serif only. And if you are looking for handwritten, so sans serif is the most used kind of typeface we use in the design. Okay, so it's very pleasing and beautiful. It is very, very okay. So in any kind of project you are working on, you can make use of sans serif, but it depends. You can also use serif sometimes. That depends on anything you want to work on. So now, if you are working on display, now display is just in form of in kind of, it's just very different, yeah? But we don't really use display, but you can use it. You can see any font under it. You can see every font under it. And we also have handwritten. So handwritten are kind of stylish fonts. They are kind of stylish fonts. So if you are working on something like a dating app or something like that, can have a stylish font. Or you are working on a fashion app, for instance, you can have a stylish font. Okay, if I'm still connected. Okay, so you can have a stylish font. We call it handwritten or script. And we have monospace. Now, monospace are kind of typefaces that have spaces between the letters. They have more spaces between the letters. That's just it. And they can have stroke. You can have a stroke one, and you can have a one that looks like sans serif. But what makes it different is that it has spacing between them, enough spacing. So that's just it. So, and if you are working on, if you just want to explore every typefaces, you can checklist everything. Okay, that's just it. And you can search for any font here. So if you are working on something like Lato, just search for it. You will see Lato. Okay, so like that. That's just typeface. Now let's go back. Now we have fonts. So fonts are style of text characters, numbers, punctuation, and symbols. So if you have Arial bold, Roboto medium, that is a font. So font talks about the style of that text. Okay, how stylish a text is. You know, the style of Arial bold and Arial medium is different because Arial bold has more weight, okay, and is very bold, unlike the medium. That's the style. The style of that thing means that this one is what more visible, that is more bold than the other one. That's just what font style is. So could be a character, a number, punctuation, and any kind of symbol. That is what a font. So you now know the difference between font and typeface. Typeface is the collection of what related fonts, while font is just the style of a text. Now these are what key terminologies you need to take notes. We have readability. So what readability means is the measure of how easy it is to read the text overall. And I said earlier that in your typeface, what makes it a typography is the readability aspect. So it must be what? Readable. So now readability is a measure of how easy it is to read the text overall. So you need to take note of that. In any kind of text you are using for your project, make it what? Readable. Then we have line height. So line height is a vertical distance between lines of text. The vertical distance between the lines. And we have line length is the what? The width of a line text. So usually measured in characters. We also have baseline, the invisible horizontal line upon which a line text rests. So your ABC, the invisible line that you can't see, that is the baseline. And we also have tracking. So tracking is just the space between each characters. So like for the monospace typography, like we said earlier, it has more spacing. That means the tracking is is kind of bigger than the rest. Okay, so it's also known as spacing or letter spacing, character spacing or letter spacing. So let me show you all these terminologies in the. So for line height here, let's come to the Figma file. So let's just have something like, let's just if you press your T, you get your typography, right? Let's just have something like typography. Let me make it bigger. So this was the text. Now if you take a look at this inter is a sans serif. It does not have any stroke, it does not have multiple spacing. It's a sans serif typeface. Okay, so here you can choose different kind of font name. Okay, you can choose them. So let's just keep using our inter, because inter saves a lot, because it's the first typeface we have on our Figma. Now here is where you now choose your font styles. Okay, if you want a thin or an extra light, regular, and stuff, italic and the likes. Okay, this is where you can get them. Let's just keep using our semi-bold. And here is where you can increase the size of that. Now I said something about line height. I said line height is the vertical distance. So from this top to this bottom, that is the line height. So we normally use 150% in our design. 150%. Okay, so if you are working on any project, you can use 150%, not 150, but 150%. Now here is where we have our letter spacing. So the distance between all of these text. So if you increase it to something like 4, you can see there is a distance. Let me increase it to something like, okay, you can see when I have 26%, you can see how spacious it is. And you can also reduce it. So some people use something like minus, they use minus sometimes. So some use -2 or something if they want the text to come together, but let's just keep it at 0. Okay, then this is the paragraph spacing. They have their uses and some other features here. We have auto height. If you are writing a text, so you are just giving it an auto height for it to be breaking down, or you have a fixed size. So every text that you want to be on that container should just be fixed on that container. So if it exceeds it won't contrast, right? So and we also have some other features here. So some other settings here. We have, like I said earlier, and alignment too. If you want to align it to the center, align it to the left, align it to the right, or justify it just within that. If you want to underline it here, you can underline it or give it a strike through. Okay, you have that. Let's just keep it as one. And here you can change the case. So if you want everything to be uppercase, just click on this. Irrespective of how you type it, it will happen there. We also have lowercase. We have the title case, whereby you have the title. Let's just keep it there. And if you want to trim it, something like this, trim. Let's just keep it like this. And also the list style. If you want to make it a list style, like a bullet or numbered list. You can click on this, it will be listed, or bullet, it will be one. Okay, so and some other features. That's just about typography. But the main essence of typography is to make it what? Readable. Just have that at the back of your mind. Now let's talk about negative space. No, sorry, there's a mistake. So now let's talk about visual hierarchy. Now this is very, very important. Okay, so visual hierarchy is the placement of elements in a way that communicates their importance to a user in a particular order. Okay, you can see a placement of an element in a way that communicates their importance, that degree of importance. So if you are in if you are working on a platform now, you need to have some things that have high priority, right? So that means you are going to be making them more visual than any other thing. Okay, so it's formed visual interest where is given to the words most important element or action in your design. When a particular element is given more importance or action in your design, so it's kind of form a visual interest to users. So let me show you an example. So you can see here, you probably read this first. That's it. You will read this first because it has more priority. It is more visual than any other text. And we also have something like, and then you will probably read this immediately because that is after this one. It is more bold than this one. So, and you will most likely leave this for last. This is what you read for last because you want this text, this first one, to have more priority. That's why you change you increase the size and you make it bold, right? That's why you increase the size because you are giving it more importance. Okay, and the next one you are giving that one a less importance, and this one you are giving the least importance. So that means you have been able to showcase the visual hierarchy. Everything here, they are not having the same text or the same kind of size. You can see that they are different, meaning that one has more priority than the other. So if you go back to this presentation too, you'll see that the visual hierarchy has more importance than any other thing. Okay, so ways by which visual hierarchy can be established in a design, ways that you can establish a visual hierarchy is not only by the size. We have the size, right? You can increase the size, but it's not only by the size. The contrast, how people can see it, right? You also have the color. If you change the color to like something like, okay, for instance, you can see this visual hierarchy text has a deep black, while this one has something like a gray. Which one will you see first? Irrespective of the size, you will probably see the one that has a darker version first. Okay, so we have the color, we also have the typography, we have the styles, the style by which you use that concept. We also have repetition. So if you repeat a particular design element, you will be seeing it, right? That means you are giving it a more priority than any other thing. You also have proximity. Proximity is like how close something is. So if you bring some things together, you are giving it a priority, a kind of importance. And we also have alignment and white spacing. These are kind of ways by which you can establish visual hierarchy. Okay, it's just as simple as that. So that's an example. So guidelines to introduce hierarchy to a design. You don't just bring in visual hierarchy to your design first. You don't just bring in kind of visual hierarchy. Let's make this one big. Let's do this. No, the first thing is to get to know the information first. You need to be familiar with the kind of information you are working on, so as to make decision on the one you want to give more importance than the other. Visualize the user journey on a particular screen. Yes, you need to understand the user journey first, the kind of user flow, the one that has more priority first, because before you can decide on the visual hierarchy, right? Now, after the visual hierarchy, we also have the layout. The layout is another concept of the design principles. So this is the arrangement of content in a unified composition. How you want to arrange your content, that is layout. That is what layout is. So it's a distribution of visual weight of objects, colors, text, and space. It's also known as balance. So how balanced your design is comes from how you work on the layout, right? So how balanced your design is what your layout. So now, balancing a content, we have three types of it. We have the symmetrical, we have asymmetrical, and we have radial. So for a symmetrical balancing, the elements used on one side of the design are similar to those on the other side. So if you're working on, okay, yeah, let me see talk about it. If you're working on a project where you just want everything to have the same kind of priority, the same spacing, the same size, you can use a symmetrical where you have everything on the both x and y axis the same. Let me show you something. A typical example is our Behance. So let's go to Behance. So you can see it. Let's just take note of what we can see now. You can see that everything here, all of this one, they have the same priority, they have the same size, they have the same spacing. This is a symmetrical layout. Okay, it is mostly used in platforms like e-commerce, where you want to showcase every product, right? You just want to showcase everything. That is a symmetrical layout. That's just how it is. You can see everything on the x and y axis are the same. Now let's go to asymmetrical. Now asymmetrical is the opposite. So asymmetrical, the sides are different but still low balance. So the layout, the elements are different in layout, but they still look balanced. So this is often what we have in our design, mostly when we are not even concerned about what is there and what is there. We just want to put in everything, but our design still look balanced. Okay, so you just need to understand how you can balance your design. Okay, either symmetrical or asymmetrical, it must be what balanced. Then we have the radial. So the radial is the elements are arranged around the central point and may be similar. So if you are bringing a kind of a project whereby it is kind of in a circular form, in a circular view, that is a radial. So it is mostly used in platforms like but people don't really use it, but that's where you can find a typical example in platforms like interior design, where people want to showcase the furnitures. They can just add something like that. So that's another example. So these are types of balancing, and now you can balance symmetrical, asymmetrical, and radial. Now you fully understand how you can balance your design. Then now we have the grid system. This concept is also very, very important. So the grid system helps to rhythm or repetition across our designs, which generally make the design look better. So grids are made up of gutter, margin, column, and rows. So let's go to our Figma. Okay, before we go there, so what is a column? The column is arranging content into a uniformly spaced vertical column using a column grid. You will see that on the Figma file. Just wait. And we also have row or baseline is arranging into a uniformly spaced horizontal lines to which the baseline of a text is aligned. Now we also have the gutter. The gutter is the spacing between each column. Now we have the types of grid. So we have modular grid and hierarchical grid. I said earlier when we were talking about grid that it is how you structure your design. It helps to rhythm or repetition across our design, which generally makes the design look better. Now we have modular grid. Modular grid is what is used here. Okay, this is modular grid where everything is the same. So it is mostly used in e-commerce and platforms like this. And also we have the hierarchical grid. Hierarchical grid, as the name implies, meaning that we are giving some components, some elements, kind of hierarchy, right? So we are not considering the same size or the same color and stuff like that. So what we are considering is the one that has more priority. Now let's go to our Figma file to talk more about grid. So grid is mostly used on frames, right? It's mostly used on frame. Now if you want to work on a desktop frame, for instance, this one, I use this one more often. Okay, it is a width of 1440 and height of 1024. Definitely sometimes I increase the height, but the width is fixed. That's what I use. Now this is where you can get your grid. So after clicking on the frame, just come here and click on grid. Okay, you can add grid. Now if you add grid, it will automatically bring out a grid of 10 pixels. Now just have to come here, click on this options. Now you can now change it. Is either you want to put in a column grid or a row grid, right? So let's talk about column first. Now column grid, you can see I said that a column grid is the vertical column, right? Is the vertical column we are I said vertical column, sorry. Is the vertical grid we have, is the vertical lines we have on our frame. Now this is the count of it. So if you increase this count to something like 10, you see that the count is what increased. So a typical count we use for a what's it called, for a desktop view like this, for a desktop size is 12. We use 8 or 4. So if you want to work on a mobile device, you can use 4, but if you are working on desktop, you use 8. Okay, now this is where we have, just leave this stretch as stretch. Okay, you don't need to work on it. Now this is very, very important. The margin now tell us that this is where our design should start from and this is where it should end. Okay, in every design, in every kind of project, you used to have a margin. Okay, the spacing, the right spacing and the left spacing. Okay, so the margin here is, we use 120. Some people use 100, some use 160. So I use 120. So 120 is mostly used. So, and this is the gutter. You can just have this gutter as 24. Gutter is the spacing between each column, like I said earlier. So you can have 24, but these are very, very important: the count and the margin and the space and the gutter, yes, spacing. So they are very important. So you can change the color, it depends, but since it does not have any kind of usefulness, we don't change it, we just leave it like that. So this is a grid. A grid for what? A grid for a desktop view. Okay, now you understand the desktop view. Now let's talk about the grid of a what? Of a mobile view. Now a mobile view, let's click on our F and come here and take our frame out. I'll be using this one. So now if you are working on a mobile view, it's just very related. Just come here and click on grid. Okay, click on grid, add grid. Now automatically it will have a grid of 10 pixels. Now you can now customize it and go to what? A column grid. Now, okay, we haven't talked about row grid. I'm coming. So I said that if you are working on a mobile view, you should use what? 4. Please, you need to take this. You need to take note of this. So you use 4 on mobile, and you still leave this as stretch. But for the spacing, you can use 20. You can use 16. So I mostly use 20. I use 20 often, and the spacing can be 12. Okay, the gutter spacing can be 12. You can see now we have the what? The mobile grid too. We have the desktop grid and the mobile grid. That means that if you want to place in anything, for instance, let me duplicate this text. Sorry. So let me bring out this text. Let me change the color to something like black. Now this text, for instance, if you want to place in this text on this frame, it needs to start from what? It must not exceed this. Okay, that means it must start from 120. And if you want to put it at the end, for instance, you want to put it at the end, it must not exceed this grid, this margin. Okay, so that means it must not touch this margin at all, right? The same goes to what? The mobile. So if you are working on something like that, it must start from, let me reduce this, it's too big. So it must start from what? This place, unless you want to keep it at the middle or keep it at the any side. But if you want to keep it at the side, at the right or left side, it must not exceed this point. Okay, the same goes to this side too. It must not exceed it. So anything you are working on, anything you want to write, anything you want to bring in your design, it must be within this red line, the start to the end. Okay, so that's the essence of grid line. And we also have what's it called, the row grid. So let me just add another grid here. You can add as many as possible. So let's now customize it as what? Rows. Now row grids. On row grids, I said the row grid is the what? Is the horizontal line, right? We don't use this row grid often. Okay, so what we use is the column grid. So you can just have the same kind of, so something like 12. It also has its own margin. So the margin for this, if you are working on a desktop view, so I typically use something like 30. So anything I'm doing must not exceed this 30. So if for instance I want to bring in this one to the up, so it must not exceed 30, and it must not exceed this one too for the column. So it must not exceed this, so it must start from 30, right? Because if you are working on something, if your design is just wide and it takes every space, that means it's not okay. So back to that column grid, row grid. This is it, right? So now, and the gutter too, you can increase the gutter to something like 24. Okay, the spacing. Okay, so like that. Now for the same goes to this one too. Let's add another one. So whenever I'm starting to design, most times if you are working on a mobile version, you used to have something like a status bar here where you have the date and the time, right? So you can just give it, oh sorry, this is supposed to be row, and the spacing can now be something like 32. Yeah, or no, I think that's so much. I use 24. So you can then increase this something like 4, this is something like 4, and it depends on how you want to use this. Like I said earlier, we don't normally use row grids. Now you might be wondering that if you are designing, is this how you are going to be designing everything, designing every time? Is this how you are going to be putting every design looking like this that is not beautiful? No, you can do this. Just come to this side and hide everything so that you can be able to see everything. But just know that it must not exceed that. And for this too, you can just hide it, okay, so that you'll be able to see what you are working on perfectly. Okay, so that's that about grid system. Now we have proximity. So proximity principle is the idea that placing similar design elements close together produces a more effective visual design. So if you are bringing design elements together, that means they have a typical relationship between each other. So that is proximity. So if a design lack proximity, that means related design elements are not being together, are being too far. That means the spacing between them is beyond what is supposed to be. Now, separating two parts of a design element shows a lack of what? Relationship or connection. Okay, so it is also very important. If you know that these two buttons need to be together, just bring them together. Okay, so that it won't be something that user will be trying to understand that what's the use of this, what's the use of this, are they really different, whereas they are the same. Now, ways of creating proximity in your design. The first one is the spacing. So the spacing of your design elements needs to be what? Close. And we also have color. Color also indicates proximity. If you know that these things are the same, why giving this one another color and giving this another color? So it's not making sense, and it is lacking some relationship. And we have the size. Since they are the same, give them the same size. Okay, then the font. Since they are the same thing, since they need some connection between the two, why giving this one another font and giving this one another font? So the font needs to be the same. So these are ways by which you can make design elements close together and to show some kind of connection and relationship between them. The spacing, the color, the sizing, and the font, right? So that's about proximity. So if you are working on a particular project that you need, maybe you are working on a platform like an investment platform, something like that. So maybe whenever user have completed a particular task, okay, you now have a cancel button and a done button or something like that. A cancel investment, or click on sources or something like that. So you need to bring that button together, though they are not the same, but they need to have some relationship between the two. So it must be kind of close. Okay, so just bring everything together by the side. But what makes it different is that maybe the color, the state of that button can now be different. Okay, but making it far that user might even want to think about canceling that investment, and what they'll be seeing is what's it called? Done. They won't be seeing the cancel. For instance, you putting the cancel at the top, putting the done at the bottom is not making sense. Okay, the spacing there is too much. So we have alignment. That's the next thing. So alignment, this is a design principle that refers to lining up text, images, or other elements on a page. So on how you can bring everything together on a page. You can see that, for instance, this word alignment and this definition are aligned. So if you want to get your alignment done, you can use your let me go to the Figma file. So for instance, on this page, on this, you want to align these two texts. So and you are in a state whereby you need to align them. You can use a line. I just click on L to get line, right? So let's just give it a 90 degree, so that what to be 90, and let's keep it at 120. So for you to be able to check, you can see that everything is what aligned. But since you are working on a project that has a grid, why do you need to align again? Why do you need this line again? Sorry. So what you just need to do is to uh uh click on your alignment, your grid. You can use shift G. So if you use shift G, it will close. If you use shift G, it will be what? It will be on. Shift G. Alright, so if you want to bring this together, this is just it. Definitely you've been able to align it without the use of what's it called, line. Okay, so you can just use shift G to close the grid system. That's another usefulness of the what, grid system. You don't need to make use of that alignment. So it helps you bring order to your design. If your design is aligned, it brings some order. Okay, you having design like this text is starting from 0, this one is starting from 20, this one, and they're supposed to be aligned. So there's no kind of any order in your design. So that's about alignment. So we have repetition. So what repetition means is, repetition is a kind of principle that you need to be repeating particular stuff. For instance, is the color. So you have a primary color already. Now you have some primary actions that you need that primary color to do. Okay, now using another color, that means that action there is not a primary action, which is what? Off, which is wrong. So repetition can be created when one or more elements of a design are used repeatedly to create a what? A feeling of organized movement. Okay, when something is what? Used repeatedly, that's what it is trying to create a kind of feeling that this is what this thing means, this is what it means. Okay, so a feeling of organized movement, e.g. is the use of a specific primary color. Like I said earlier, using a specific primary color is telling the user that this is a primary color, and whenever you are seeing this kind of primary color, you are clicking on a primary action. Okay, so whenever they see that, they will know that this action needs to be what? Needs to be I need to click on this one, I need to click on this. This is the what? This is what I need to do. So that's about repetition. Repeating a particular design element. Then the last one here is the negative space or white space. So we already know what's negative space. It's just the spacing between elements. So this is the area of the layout that is left empty. Here there's a white spacing. Here is a white spacing. Is a white space. So it may not only be around the object you place in the layout, but also between and inside them. So your letter, for instance, the tracking, like we said on the typography, that is a white spacing or negative spacing. So you can see it is inside of that text. So it can help to differentiate elements or sections in your design. So if you have different elements that needs to be differentiated, that needs to be distanced from each other, we make use of what? White spacing. So unlike the what's it called, the proximity that I said, that when you need some elements to be together, you need some connection between them. That means you bring them together. But on the other hand, sometimes you also have some elements that are not supposed to be together. What do you use to differentiate them is what? White spacing. So it can be used to reduce chaos on the screen. Okay, so if everything is just stuck together, everything is just, there's no white spacing, there's a kind of, that design is not okay. There's a kind of problem with the design, chaos. Okay, so that is the last design principle we have here. We've talked a lot. We've talked about every design principle we have. Okay, so there are some other ones, but these are the common and what important ones. So if you already know this, you are good to go. If you can work on color, on how you can use color. And also there's another one called contrast. You know what contrast is? Contrast is what? How visible something is. So if you are, let me show you an example. Sorry. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So I want to talk about contrast, right? So for instance, if you are working on a button, so let me bring something like this rectangle. Now, you know a button usually has a text or icon inside it. So let's say we want to have a text inside it, and it is button. Let's just have it like that. So if you place it, let me reduce it. So this is a kind of button, right? So this is a button. Now if you now want to change the color and now make use of the same color that you have here, the same color, you can see people can't even see it. So that means it's lacking contrast, right? The contrast is very, very bad. It's very bad. So bring it back to black. That's just what contrast is. So meaning that, and there's a particular plugin for that. Let me check if I still have it here. So if you design anything and you are kind of confused that is the contrast okay, you can just use this plugin to figure it out. So what's the name of the plugin? I think it's color contrast or contrast. So you'll be able to see the words, the how good it is, or is it bad, is it not okay. So now before rounding up, because we have this is the we've come to the end of the slide. We've talked a lot, talked about the what's the color theory, the typography, we talk about the visual hierarchy, we discussed the layouts, talked about the grid system, talked about proximity, alignment, repetition, and negative space. Okay, so that will be the end of the slide for today. Okay, so having knowing all of this, you'll be able to design, you'll be able to come up with a good design, aesthetically pleasing and well structured design. Okay, when you know the kind of color you're supposed to use, when you know the typography you need to use, you know the grid system, you need to focus on the alignment, proximity, what's it called, visual hierarchy. Okay, the one that has more hierarchy, and try to focus on a particular layout that you want to use. Is it symmetrical, is it asymmetrical, is it a radial layout? So you are good to go with all of this. So now before rounding up, do you have any question? I think we should have question, right? We should have question. We've discussed a lot. Should have question. Should have question. Okay, hold on, guys. Okay, that's a very good question. So we said we have different type of UI designs. Because we have some new trends like what's it called, new brutalism. Yeah, we have glassophorism. We also have the normal one we use is minimalist design. So these design principles, almost everything, are needed to be what, to be cross-checked, needed to take note of when, irrespective of the kind of design you want to do. Is it new brutalism? Is it minimalist design? But often, if you are working on new brutalism, for instance, sometimes the contrast is low. The kind of color they use is off. So if you are working on something like that, you need to go and study new brutalism first before you decide to work on your project. But for the normal design, these are the principles. So everything is still within it, but on how they use it is different. The application is what is different. So on the new brutalism, sometimes you just have a bad contrast. You see something like that is not okay. Okay, because new brutalism designs are often used for uh mostly is not used by adults. I said adults. It's not used by old people that can't even see, because new brutalism sometimes can be frustrating. Okay, it's not I'm commending it, but if you are working on new brutalism design, go and study new brutalism first, or any kind of design. But if you are on minimalist design, the normal design you work on, these are the principles you need to take note of. I think I've answered that question. Okay, I think we still have another question here. Okay, you said, do we have a specific uh font size we use for our headings and subheadings? So uh the reason I didn't touch that, though I should have talked about it, is that we still have a lot to cover on style guides where we'll be discussing more of it. But we have a kind of styles, a guide, okay, that govern those things. So if you are working on headings, sometimes the font we use for our desktop view is different from our, it's not even sometimes, sorry, the font we use for our desktop view is different from the one we use for our what, mobile view, because the desktop view is bigger and the mobile view is what, smaller. So we have a what, a guideline. So for instance, we have in our style guides, we used to have a range of h1 to h6, h1 indicating the bigger one, and h6 indicating the what, the smaller one. So that's the range: h1, h2, h3, h4, h5, h6. So that's the what, the range of the font style, font sizes we use. So on those ranges we also have different styles. We have, it could be h1 semi bold, h1 bold, h2 semi bold, h2 medium, and the likes. Okay, so that's just how it is. And we also have for body we have the body, the large, the base, the smaller, and the extra small. But don't worry about that, we'll be talking about it on the style guide. Just don't worry. But they are what, they are different. You just need to be clear about that we have different sizes we use. So it's not that it's based on any kind of design. Definitely it's based on the what, hierarchy that we want to use. So you know that this is supposed to be the heading. Now using the size of a what, of a smaller font is not making sense, and that is definitely not the heading. So heading means a what, a bigger text. So but don't worry, we'll cover that. That will be next week, hopefully, because tomorrow we need to discuss the what's it called, design elements. Okay, I think I've answered the question. Is there any other question? Is there any other question? Okay, do you still have any other question? Okay, no question for now. So now, the assignment I want to give today, plus the one we still have on ground. Okay? Okay. The assignment I want to give now is go and study different colors. Okay? You're already a graphic designer, we know that, but just go and study. Okay, we have different colors just to understand them and how you can use them. Okay, if you are working on a kind of project, you should be able to dictate, you'll be able to decide on, okay, this is the color that will go for this kind of project, this is the one that will go, so you can document that. Oh, that's an issue of network quality stuff. So if you can document that, it will be helpful so that we review it together on the platform. Okay, so if you don't have any, that's the first question, that you should work on the what, on design, on the colors, to understand different colors. So you can just document it. Okay, you can document it. So if you can do that before tomorrow or next week, there's no problem, because you still have a lot to work on. So I need to get a response for the interview, for the user interview. So prepare your mind. We'll be talking about design elements tomorrow. Design elements and how they look like, what is design elements, and okay. Don't worry, I will try to work on this high quality stuff when uploading. So do you have any other question or any suggestion or any question that it might not even be related to what we discussed today? Any question? Okay. Okay, I think there is no question. There's no question. Let me check this. You can. Oh shit. Okay, so if there's no question, we'll end the our discussion now. Okay, don't worry, you can ask me during the week. I will respond. Okay, thank you guys.